the past 43 days, Democrats in Congress shut down the government of the United States in an attempt to extort American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal aliens and people that came into our country illegally, from gangs, from prisons, from mental institutions. They wanted to pay them $1.5 trillion, which would have really hurt our healthcare businesses and our recipients at levels never seen before. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country. In just a moment, I'll sign a bill exactly like we asked Democrats to send us all along, many days ago. This cost the country $1.5 trillion, this little excursion that they took us on. Republicans never wanted a shutdown and voted 15 times for a clean continuation of funding. There's never been a time when...
Did you know that nearly half of US TV streaming time is on Roku? With Roku's new self-service ad tool, it's easy to set up your own CTV campaigns. So you can...
One or the other party ever didn't sign a continuation. It's just a continuation, not a big deal. It's a continuation and we'll talk later. Yet the extremists in the other party insisted on creating the longest government shutdown in American history, and they did it purely for political reasons. I want to thank Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, as well as House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, Majority Whip Tom Emmer, and numerous other great Republican leaders and congressmen and senators who are here and frankly spent a long time in Washington getting this thing to go away. I also want to thank the broad coalition of Americans that stood with us in this fight to reopen government, including the Teamsters, the American Federation of Government Employees, the Fraternal Order of Police, AMVETS, the National Small Business Association, the American Farm Bureau, the American Trucking Association. These are all incredible patriots. The Airlines for America, the Allied Pilots Association, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, and many others, unions and non-unions. Over the past 7 weeks, the Democrats' shutdown has inflicted massive harm. They caused 20,000 flights to be canceled or delayed. They departed so many times, so late. People were hurt so badly. Nobody's ever seen anything like this one. This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension. But they didn't want to do it the easy way. They had to do it the hard way. And they look very bad, the Democrats do. They deprived more than 1 million government workers from their paychecks and cut off food stamp benefits for millions and millions more Americans in need. They caused tens of thousands of federal contractors and small businesses to go unpaid. And the total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately, including the serious harm that they did to our economy and to people and to families. So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country. I also want to call for a termination to the filibuster so that this can never happen again. If we had the filibuster terminated, this would never happen again. And don't forget, we have another date coming up in the not too distant future. We can never let this happen again. And we should be able to pass great, really great legislation. So I say terminate the filibuster because, by the way, the Democrats will do it immediately if they ever assumed office, which hopefully they won't. Today we had the highest stock market price ever in all of the different markets. We set a record. It's the 48th time in the 9 months that I've been in office that we had this record set. So think of that, 48 times we had a record set, but today is the highest of them all. We're going to break new grounds. Nobody would have thought. I have with us not only the great political leaders, but the great business leaders of our country. They're standing right behind me and right really alongside of me. And if we would have told them a year ago that we'd be having stock prices this high, none of them, in fact, I just asked them that question, none of them would have believed it. And that inures to jobs and, very importantly, to 401ks, which have also set a record today, a record high for the people that have 401ks. And also, I want to thank Walmart because they came up with a fantastic study. It was the cost of Thanksgiving coming up and the cost of Thanksgiving from a year ago under Sleepy Joe Biden. And we're 25% lower this year than we were a year ago. And it's a very inclusive report. So I want to thank Walmart. They've done it for many years, but we believe in that, and we believe in that company. I want to also thank the 8 Senate Democrats who finally did the right thing in voting to end this craziness, this madness. But unfortunately, the vast majority of congressional Democrats were happy for millions of Americans to suffer. They really did suffer, too. And the Democrats admitted, they said, well, no, we finally have a point. Even though people have to suffer, we finally have a point. And that didn't work out too well for them. But they really went out and they could appease the fringe benefits of their far-left base. But that didn't work out because now their far-left base is angrier than ever before. We actually elected a mayor of New York City who happens to be a communist. When was that going to happen? Remember, I said all the time during my campaign, we will never be a socialist country. And that's right. We turned out to have a communist in New York City. And if you look at his views, those are the views of a communist, not a socialist. So this is no way to run a country. I hope we can all agree that the government should never be shut down again. End the filibuster, terminate the filibuster. It'll never happen again. So with my signature, the federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again for all Americans. Again, costs are way down. Energy is way down. Gasoline is at $2.50 a gallon versus $4.70 for the Democrats. And we think we're going to hit pretty close to $2 a gallon. That's like a really massive tax cut. It's the equivalent of that. And speaking of tax cuts, our great, big, beautiful bill is giving everybody in our economy, middle income workers, low income, everybody.
If you live in a Kentucky...
I hate these commercials. I hate them.
The history of our country, and it's no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and very importantly, no tax on overtime. You work overtime, there's no tax. That's among the things that add up to the biggest tax cut in history. One other thing, you hear about rich people with deductions. Well, when you buy your car and you borrow money, you're allowed to now deduct the interest on that loan. So you can take that interest deduction and what you can take is that interest payment and deduct it for income tax purposes. That's a tremendous tax cut right there. But it all includes fixing the healthcare system that Democrats broke with the disaster known as Obamacare. Obamacare was a disaster from day one. It's done nothing but go up. And if you remember President Barack Hussein Obama, when he came up with this crazy idea, he said everything's going to be great. Rates are going to go down. Payments are going to go down. Everything's going to go down. It went the exact opposite with the biggest increase of healthcare in any country. It's a disaster. And I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare. And I've had, I think, great support. I've even had Democrat support. So we want the money that would be going to the insurance company, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. Their stock prices have gone up by 1,000% in many cases, 1,000% over a short period of time, because our country stupidly pays them so much money with this Obamacare scandal. So I want the money to go directly to you, the people. And you go out and you'll buy your own health insurance and you'll negotiate different plans and you'll get much better insurance and you will be an entrepreneur for yourself. So I'm always willing to work with anyone, including the other party. We'll work on something having to do with health care. We can do a lot better. We can do great. So much money is involved. and we're willing to pay so much money to the people. So we're going to pay a lot of money to the people. They're going to go out and buy their own health care, and we're going to forget this Obamacare madness. So with all of that, I just want to tell you the country has never been in better shape. We went through this short-term disaster with the Democrats because they thought it would be good politically. And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you very much.
Watch the signature. See, that's his actual signature. That's not the signature that they put on that so-called birthday card that they claimed he sent to Epstein. Go look at the signature on the card and then look at that signature and tell me what you see.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know.
All right. I guess we'll stop it there. Let's go. I guess I can close that. Go back to StreamYard. All right. Let's get me on screen. There you go. All right. So, the government shutdown is over.
Peloton single pack down is over.
The government shutdown has ended. The bill has been signed. The funding will be released. Obamacare is kaput. And that Obamacare money is going to be returned to the American people. Now, what president have we ever seen even attempt to do something like this? Because I don't really recall any president besides Bush. Bush did that stupid stimulus thing during the housing crisis like one time, and that was it. But Trump has been, consistently finding ways to funnel money back into the hands of the people. And it's up to us. It's up to us, the people, to figure out what we're going to do with that money. What's the best move to make with that money, with that extra money that we're getting and the extra money that we'll be saving with the lower costs? Like, what are we... Like, what are we gonna, how are we gonna use this to as a leg up to make progress? Because most Americans, we're a consumer culture, right? So most Americans, when they get extra money in their hands, instead of thinking about investing or saving, they think about spending. I do that too. You know what I'm saying? We all do it because it's the culture we were raised in. There's so much to choose from. It's hard to say, I'm going to abstain from it or I'm going to go without because it's all right there waiting for you. And if you got the money, why not? But this is unprecedented. And from what Trump described briefly in that press conference, it sounded to me, and maybe I'm reaching, but it sounded to me like this was one of the first steps to, I guess, instituting or enacting the financial reset that we've all been hearing about over the years, which involves, breaking up the big corporate monopolies, shutting down the Federal Reserve Central Bank, creating a gold-backed currency, joining the quantum financial system and all that stuff. But it has to happen in increments and it has to happen in stages. And I think this government shutdown that went on was basically a restructuring period where while the Democrats were busy playing politics and voting no on the continuing resolution because they kept, wanting to fight for, rights and money for illegals, the Trump administration was actually going through the books and looking at what was necessary, what wasn't necessary, what we can do, what we need and what we can do without, and basically coming up with a way to create a surplus rather than operate at a deficit, and use that surplus money to put back in the hands of the American people. And in Nasara, if you go read the components of Nasara describes one of the components. It describes a mass redistribution of wealth that had been stolen from the people. And that mass distribution of wealth and disbursement of money will be under the guise of humanitarian purposes. But it's not really humanitarian purposes. It's basically going back to good business. It's giving back the people what was stolen from us. So it's almost like reparations for everybody, I guess you could say. And I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good deal, because a lot of Americans out there, they're smart and they work hard, but they don't have the capital to, put their ideas into function, right? They don't have the money to start that business, that great business idea that they have. And these days it's very hard to find people that would be willing to invest in you, because every investment is a gamble and it's always shaky, and there's always a possibility that you can lose the money you put in. So people are very hesitant on, putting money in somebody's hand and saying, hey, go for it. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times we got to find a way to come up with that shit ourselves. But if, we're being taxed on our income and then taxed on our spending when we buy shit, we're being double taxed. And then we got to pay all these, all these overhead costs. Rent's high as hell, food's high as hell, gas is high. You know what I'm saying? Like all these liabilities that are costing us money on the day to day make it almost impossible to have that consistent surplus where you can put that money aside and let it accumulate, or put it in a money market account and let it collect, let it compound with interest, or put it into a trading account and do a buy and hold long-term investment or whatever. And we just don't have the money to do it. And so that hinders us from being able to essentially get over that hump. But now that the restructuring has happened, and I got a couple of articles that detail it all, so I'm just kind of giving you a brief overview. Now that the restructuring has happened, hopefully that restructuring will result in a change in that pattern where people can actually get over that hump. You can't save your way to wealth, but you can save your way to that capital that you will use to invest to create that wealth. You know what I'm saying? So even though you can't save your way to wealth, saving is still one step in the process. It's the first step in the process. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're making just enough to cover the bills, saving is damn near impossible. Because every once in a while, some shit's going to happen and you got to go dip into your savings because you just don't have it on hand. Yeah, Brian Butler. Other people are seeing it, man. Brian Butler says, been stumbling across a lot of videos about the quantum financial system and a major transfer of wealth lately. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. And it sounds like from what Trump's talking about, he's basically putting the wheels in motion to get that going. And I love it. I think it's a good thing. And I really would like to see the Trump haters. I really would like to see what they would have to say about this, because I'm pretty sure they'll reach into their bag, their Trump derangement syndrome knapsacks, and find something that they can pull out of their ass to claim that Trump bad, because, well, orange man bad, and everything in reality has to be that Trump bad. Some people just live in their own reality. They ignore facts. They gaslight, they change shit around, and they literally just live like that. And the people in their family are the same way, and that's just how they are. You know what I'm saying? They've been lied to by the people who raised them, and they lied to themselves their whole lives, and you know what I'm saying? And they just live in this total delusion. So anything that's contrary to what's actually happening in reality, they'll gravitate towards and they'll hold on to. And I'm sure you've had conversations with people like that where they would say one thing and then 2 minutes later act like they didn't say it. Or like with the liberals, where they would come pick a fight with you, and then when you dare defend yourself, they're now the victim and you're the bad guy. Like, in what world? In their delusion, because they live in delusion. And this is why it's so easy for the Democratic Party and the left-wing media to get so many people to actually buy into these stupid ideas that contradict themselves. Because these people have a unique ability to delude themselves and live in this delusion and declare it to be reality. Where do you think the whole idea of my truth came from? That's the biggest load of bullshit there is. There is no such thing as my truth. The truth doesn't need to be qualified with anything. It's either the truth or it's a fucking lie. That's it. So if it's your truth and it doesn't align with reality, you're lying to your fucking self. So you can take your truth and shove it up your ass. I've always hated that. Like, ever since, like, before I even put any thought into the whole my truth thing, like, from the first time I heard it, I cringed. I was like, in what world? The truth is not objective, it's subjective. I mean, it's not subjective, it's objective. So it can't be yours or it can't be mine. It just is. But anyway, the government shutdown is over, but not everything is back to normal. Now, this article is from NPR, and I believe that this article may go through some of the major changes that have occurred with the federal government and their spending budget during the shutdown and what's in this new bill that's passed. So we're definitely going to take a look at that article, because that hopefully will shed some light on what's to come. Now, since the Democrats have taken such a major L with this government shutdown thing, and they clearly and openly demonstrated that they were willing to let their own constituents suffer just to push their political agenda, they have pretty much lost the 2026 midterm elections. And now that they're basically losing steam politically because people are starting to see them for who they are, even their own supporters, now they're trying to play the whole Trump Epstein narrative all over again. And whenever you see them start doing that, because this ain't the first time they've done it, whenever you see them start doing that, that's how you know that they just took a major L or they're about to take an even bigger L. And I believe that they're pushing this Trump Epstein thing because a whole bunch of these people are about to be publicly arrested, and we're about to hear about it. Because investigations are currently happening, indictments have already been handed down, and grand juries are being convened for more indictments. So shit's about to get real, and I think that they're scared because they know what's about to happen, and they know that a lot of the shit that they're guilty of also involves Epstein-esque activities. And so they need to desperately link Trump to Epstein and sell the narrative that Trump and Epstein are buddies or whatever. And they were down with the same shit, which is a total lie. Because once their links to Epstein start getting exposed, people won't take it that seriously because they'll think Trump is one of them. But again, because these liberals and these leftists, they live in delusion, right? They can't put two and two together and reason and think logically and reason and say, well, if Bush was down with Epstein, Clinton was down with Epstein, Obama was down with Epstein, and under neither when all three of these guys were in office and were around, nobody arrested or charged Epstein. None of them had the DOJ go after Epstein the way Trump did. Epstein did get in trouble, but he got let off with probation, right? So none of these presidents have actively taken a stance against Jeffrey Epstein the way Trump did. And we now know for a fact that every single one of these presidents were down with Epstein. So it would make sense that they wouldn't say a word about Epstein or about pedophilia or about human trafficking or anything because they're involved. And then along comes Trump, and he's all about the human trafficking and protecting the children, and he arrests Epstein. He has his DOJ go after Epstein. How can you logically deduce in your mind that yes, Trump is one of them and Trump is down with Epstein when Trump is the only one that actually had Epstein prosecuted? How does that make any sense at all? Like, if I'm the mayor and I'm involved in cocaine trafficking, the last thing I'm going to want to do is launch a crusade against the cocaine dealers in my town because I'm down with them. But let's say the last mayor was cocaine dealing and I'm the new mayor and I came in and I learned about it and I decided to go after the last mayor for his cocaine dealing. How can you say that I'm down with the cocaine dealing? That makes no sense, because why would I prosecute the cocaine dealer if I'm into cocaine dealing? It makes no fucking sense at all. But you see, these people are this is why we call it Trump derangement syndrome, because they're so delusional that they ignore these basic logical, these basic logistics, and they just run with the narrative because it makes them feel good. They live in their feels. And this is why the Democratic Party has always been more appealing to women and effeminate men. Males. Of course, not all women, but the Democratic Party is mostly gynocentric. The men have no balls and the women wear the pants. But they're still pushing the Trump Epstein narrative. So we, on the truth side of things, we have to push back, and we have to continue to push back, because more and more people are becoming politically awake and politically aware, and they're being bombarded from every angle with all of these lies by the mainstream media, the Democratic Party, and the entire establishment, political establishment. And because they don't know shit about politics, they don't understand that these people are lying to them, and they're all co-conspirators in the same lie. So because they hear it so many times from so many different sources, they tend to believe it. And hating Trump these days is the cool thing to do. So what better way to fit in? But this is why what we do is so important, because we're the counter narrative that if any of those people who are now starting to explore the political angle come across podcasts like mine, or maybe some of yours, or other folks that are truth-centered and are not paid agents, hopefully the counter narrative would make more sense to them, be more logical, more pieces of the puzzle would fit, and they wouldn't have to do all the mental gymnastics to try to figure it out, because it's all right there laid out in black and white. And hopefully they start leaning on the side of the truth, because the truth has got a funny way of resonating with people. It's like, you don't know if they're lying to you or if they're telling you the truth, but somehow you kind of sense it when they're telling you the truth. Or if you hear something that you never heard before, it'll tend to resonate in you. Even if, like when you first heard the earth is flat, your first thought was probably to doubt it. Just like my first thought was to doubt it. But for some reason, the thought just kept lingering in my mind. It just hovered in my mind, and I had to I had to dig into it, and I couldn't just write it off and let it go. And upon digging into it and upon investigating, it turns out that there is a very good possibility that the earth could be flat. And there's definitely a 100% possibility that the earth is not a spinning ball, because we wouldn't have to lie so much to justify its existence if it were true. But I say that to say this. The Trump-Epstein narrative has been debunked years and years ago. And as tiring as it is to keep repeating it over and over again, repeating the true narrative over and over again, I also understand that for the new people who may not be privy to this information, well, it is my job to make them aware of it. So at least if they do decide to make the decision to support Trump's agenda or oppose Trump's agenda or just stay out of it altogether, at least they will be making that decision from a position of being well informed rather than a position of being brainwashed where they've only been exposed to one side of the story. Because that's essentially what it is. When you're feeding somebody, when there's two different sides to a story, but you're only allowing one side of the story to be told, you're essentially brainwashing your audience. That's what you're doing. But nevertheless, that's what the mainstream media does. That's what the shills do, and they would lie and they would do the mental gymnastics and all that shit to try to make their narrative sell. But it ain't flying no more. Government shutdown finally over. Trump Epstein narrative falls apart. And here's one slide that I have within the slideshow, and it says, "Wow, NBC News just asked an entire panel of Epstein victims if they ever saw or heard Donald Trump doing anything inappropriate in relation to Epstein. All the victims said no. The Democrat narrative is total bullshit." Right, and the emails are bullshit too. And I have a picture of Epstein's flight log, because remember, people were saying, well, Trump was on Epstein's plane. Trump was on Epstein's plane. Well, I have the flight log, and guess who ain't on it? Right, you guessed it. But before we get started, make sure you guys go subscribe to the Citizen Man Backup channel. Also, follow me on Rumble. That's where the majority of my political content is at. So make sure you get over to Rumble and check out those videos. And of course, last but not least, if you guys would like to support the show by sending in a kind donation, you can do so via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tags scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow, the box opens up, and all the links are there. And you can also find those links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. And I want to give a big shout out to my sister Elsine for that cute challenge on the Venmo. Appreciate that, Elsine. Thank you for that. So let's get started. So Trump made a threat to the Nigerian government back on the 1st of November. And he says, if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I am hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast. And what's crazy is the U.S. military, from the latest reports that I saw right before the show started, is we are already boots on the ground in Nigeria, which leads me to believe that we were probably already there to begin with. But if you look at the words that are capitalized here, the message seems to be the same, just minus all the fluff, right? Check this out. USA, cherished warning. The Nigerian government better move fast. Now that opens up the conversation to a whole new discussion about what he could possibly mean by this message. USA, cherished warning. The Nigerian government better move fast. I think we do have an embassy in Nigeria. That's why so many Nigerians find their way over here. But slide 2, this talks about the air traffic controllers during the government shutdown. Now, it seems as though during the government shutdown, a lot of federal workers who were working at the airports were not showing up to work, and this was what was leading to the delays, right? So on the surface, we could say, yeah, we could easily explain that away. Yeah, the government shut down, people not showing up to work. That's why the flights were delayed. But reading between the lines and understanding the nature of the atmosphere right now with the FBI on the hunt for these domestic terror cells, you can also assume that during the government shutdown, some of these people probably weren't showing up to work because they were getting picked up. And because it's the government shutdown, well, it's a reasonable excuse for them not to show up. Because let's say they were being arrested and rendered to black sites or something, during normal times before the government shutdown. Then there would be a question. There would be questions asked as to why these people aren't showing up to work at the airports. But because of the government shutdown, it's easily explainable. And thus, nobody's really asking the question. It would be the perfect cover. Feel what I'm saying? Air traffic controllers must get back to work now. Anyone who doesn't will be substantially docked. For those air traffic controllers who were great patriots and didn't take any time off for the Democrat shutdown hoax, I will be recommending a bonus of $10,000 per person for distinguished service to our country. For those that did nothing but complain and took time off, even though everyone knew they would be paid in full shortly into the future, I am not happy with you. You didn't step up to help the U.S. against the fake Democrat attack. That was only meant to hurt our country. You will have a negative mark, at least in my mind, against your record. If you want to leave service in the near future, please do not hesitate to do so. I believe is what it said, and it cuts off right there at the bottom. So sorry I don't have the rest of it for you. But there's some all capital letters in here. So let's read it and see what those say. So basically, Trump is offering a $10,000 bonus to all the air traffic controllers and I guess other employees who showed up to work and worked through the shutdown without being paid. And he refers to it as a fake Democrat attack. So he's treating this as if it's wartime, and these people are loyal winter soldiers that showed up to fight even in the face of defeat. And I think that's a great way to look at it because these guys are heroes. Imagine what the air traffic situation would be like without the air traffic controllers. And there was a time when we didn't have them, and it was bad. It was pretty rough. So I like that. So let's see. It says, now, great patriots, any time off, bonus, in full, not happy with you. Fake Democrat attack. Am I missing any words here? Now, great patriots. Any time off bonus. In full. Not happy with you. Fake Democrat attack. Or not happy with you, USA. Fake Democrat attack. Now, great patriots, any time off. Now, Great Patriots. Any time off bonus in full. Not happy with you, USA. Fake Democrat attack. I don't know what to really make of that. Maybe if one of you guys could screenshot it and decipher it for me, that'd be great. But I really don't know what to make of that. Maybe there's no hidden message there. But Eric Doherty tweeted, and he says, "Holy crap, Democrat Senator John Fetterman is sending shockwaves after declaring this. I've drunk deeply of the venom, both the left and the right. The most poisonous, bitterest is the far left. His digital team told him Blusky is demented and way worse than the right. They want me to die, or we're cheering for your next stroke, or why couldn't your depression won? Or why couldn't have your depression won, I guess is what they meant to say. They even have the graphic GIF, a stroke in my head, cheering at that. And they said, Doctor, let us down. Why did they have Doctor let us down? Why did they have to save his life? I want him to die. Literally cheering for a stroke. I don't know where that comes from. This is truly despicable. Mr. Fetterman, you say, I don't know where that comes from. Well, hate to break it to you, but it comes from your many of parties' politicians who egg on the far left. That's where. I hope it stops. So apparently John Fetterman, because he was against the shutdown and wanted to reopen the country while the Democrats were supposed to be standing on business, I guess. Shout out to my brother Todd for the Venmo. Appreciate you. While the Democrats were standing on business, I guess, because he disagreed with them, now they're all over social media attacking the man. But this is how the left operates. This is why in politics, the only place you'll be able to find adequate representation is among the Republican Party. Not every Republican, let's not get that mistaken, but among that group from that side of the aisle, you're more likely to find people who will represent your best interests, because the Republican Party is they more embrace free thought, right? So there's more disagreements on the right. There's more people on the right with their own ideas and their own thoughts, but they unite on the right based on their base conservative values. On the left, in the Democrat Party, you will never find adequate representation because the people in the Democrat Party are literally forced. They're thought slaves, and they're forced to push a certain agenda, push a certain ideology, and think and operate a certain way. And any deviation from that, you get excommunicated, you get demonized, you have your life threatened, all kinds of shit happens to you. They literally bully you into staying on that thought plantation. So there's no freedom of thought. There's no independent thought on the Democrat side. This is why those major cities where they have Democrat mayors consistently, they'll have one bad Democrat mayor that they didn't like, so they'll vote that Democrat out, vote in another Democrat, and get the same shit. Maybe even worse. Why? Because they keep voting for the party of controlled thoughts. They're not voting for people who come from a political party that embraces independent free thought. The Democrat Party is a cult. They're not a political party. They are a political cult. Because that's how cults operate. The cults will excommunicate you if you question them. The cults will bully you if you question them. This is why leftists and Democrats don't like to have debates, because they know that the shit they believe in doesn't make any fucking sense. But they can live with that contradiction, and they can make it make sense to them in their minds as long as they get to live in their delusion undisturbed. But the minute somebody comes around asking logical questions, which forces them to think about the positions that they hold, it upsets them because it shatters their delusion. and it forces them to see reality for what it is. And in reality, they're wrong. But because they're narcissistic and they're egotistical, they can't ever be wrong. So they get upset. And although this is a trait that exists in both men and women, psychologically, it's a feminine trait. That unwillingness to take accountability and accept that you're wrong, that's something that women would traditionally do. But because of the single motherhood epidemic, the gynocentric female influence on a feminist influence on the left, a lot of these men now are being led by the women. So they're thinking and operating like the women. So just like the women have this unique ability to delude themselves, the men now are learning how to do that, and they too are engaging in it. And I'll prove to you that women have a unique ability to delude themselves. There are morbidly obese women out there that would get their hair done, beat their face with makeup, put on skimpy clothes, and have themselves thoroughly convinced that they're beautiful. And other women would reinforce that delusion by calling her beautiful, and everybody is fine, even though we know that woman is far from it. Men don't do that. If we got a group of homeboys and we're going out to go see some girls and one of our homeboys look crazy, we're not going to sit there and say, yeah, bro, you look fly, bro. You're going to get all the girls. No. We're going to say, bro, you look crazy. You need to go brush your face because you look wild. We're not going to lie to him. And you know what he's going to do? He's not going to argue with us. He's going to say, oh, shit, I do. And then he's going to go fix it. He's not going to say, oh, you just hating. Oh, you just mad because I look better than you. He ain't going to say that. Because men can't afford to live in that delusion. Real masculine men that have goals and have a purpose in life, we don't have the ability to live in delusion, because if we deviate from reality and we make one misstep, it's costly and the consequences are real. And this is why you find all the masculine men on the Republican side, on the conservative side, and the effeminate men on the Democrat side. And this is why the Democrat Party hates masculinity so much. You ever thought about that? Masculinity it's conducive with living in reality. A part of being a masculine man is accepting reality for what it is. Accepting your inadequacies for what they are, accepting your shortcomings for what they are, and compensating that by playing to your strengths. But it's all based in operating in reality. It is what it is. So this is what I have to work with. That's one of the root foundational principles of masculinity. But you see, the Democrat Party, they can't operate like that because their entire ideology is a lie. And because their entire ideology is a lie, the people who they have to get to believe this ideology have to be deluded in order to believe it. But because it's so hard to get masculine men to accept delusion, they shift their focus. They reject the masculinity and they shift their focus on the effeminate men and the feminist women. Because these weak, effeminate men who think submitting to their women and being led by their women is a recipe for relationship success, they're delusional. They're delusional. And these feminist women who think they can actually compete with men, they're delusional. It's literally like the dog walking the human rather than the human walking the dog. It's absolute delusion. But this is why that leftist propaganda appeals to them, because it feeds that delusion. It reinforces that delusion by telling them, hey, what those racist conservatives, those racist Republicans tell you is delusion is actually reality. And you're right. And you're a good person for believing this and being right. And anybody who doesn't believe this, they're a bad person. And so they buy into the delusion. And that's the real reason why the left hates masculinity. That is the sole purpose as to why the left hates masculinity, because masculinity does not allow, there's no allowances in masculinity for delusion. This is why men don't wear wigs and makeup, because we don't live in a delusion. We can't afford to. You know what it's like for a man living in delusion? Okay. He skips work all the time, but in the back of his mind, he tells him, yeah, I'm going to be able to pay my rent, but he's constantly skipping work, losing hours, and his paychecks is short. Then he comes up short on his rent. You know what happens? Consequences. You can't pay your rent, you get kicked the fuck out. Consequences. You know what happens to a lot of women in those situations? These delusional women in those situations? They could spend, come up short on their bills, and there's some simp that they can call on the phone and get the money from to pay their rent so they never have to face the consequences. So guess what they do next month? The same thing. Because there's always some weak man there ready to bail her out and rescue her. Why do you think so many women are turning to OnlyFans and becoming sex workers and thinking that they can sell their pussy when they're in their 20s and 30s, and then when they're in their 40s, they'll find the top tier man to marry them? Because they're delusional. Now, they will find a man to marry him, but he's going to be the bottom of the barrel muckraker. He ain't going to be the top tier guy. But because, again, there's so many simps willing to accept less than what a man should be willing to accept, the women only now have to produce what's, what would be considered the lowest standard. Because if the lowest standard is accepted, there's no reason to do better. But John Fetterman, and I didn't like Fetterman in the beginning because I figured just another Democrat. I already know what the Democrat Party is about. But Fetterman's actually been pretty all right, to tell you the truth. I'm glad it's him in there and not one of those radical insano flexes. But this is what they did to Fetterman. As I'm questioning what really happened to him, I'm praying for his recovery and his safety. Remember, I told you the Democrat Party is a cult? Senator Fetterman hospitalized after fall. Now doing well, office announces. So Senator John Fetterman, after basically disagreeing with his political party, he gets mysteriously injured, and it's called a fall. I don't think it was a fall. I think they beat him up. I think the Democrat Party or somebody in the Democrat Party had something done to this man. That's what I think. They have a track record of violence. They always cheer for political violence. They encourage political violence. So who are we to believe they wouldn't engage in political violence, especially to keep their cult members in line? Do I not have slide number 6? Is there not a slide number 6? All right, fuck it. Well, we'll go to 7. So indictments are coming down. Check this out. Representative Eric Swallowswell, you know, the one that was just hanging out with the trans gentleman that's a convicted child molester. Yeah. His $1.2 million DC home, target of DOJ mortgage fraud criminal referral. What? A criminal referral? Well, if there's a criminal referral, that means the investigation has already concluded. Because what happens is the investigators will investigate, and if they find evidence of crimes, they will compile all that evidence, and they would hand it over to the Attorney General's office at the Department of Justice with a referral for indictment. Then a grand jury will be convened. The evidence in that referral is then presented to the grand jury, and the grand jury decides if they're going to indict. And if they decide to indict, the indictment comes down, the warrant is issued, and the arrest is made, and the trial then begins. Now, it's funny that it's mortgage fraud of all crimes, because didn't Letitia James, the Attorney General for New York State, didn't she just get indicted for mortgage fraud too? So it seems like there's some kind of insider play that was going on with these politicians. And I'm pretty sure Letitia James and Eric Swallowswell are not the only two people who are who have criminal referrals for mortgage fraud. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a whole bunch of them, because this seems to be something that keeps reoccurring amongst these top Democrat politicians. And perhaps it was something that they were all in on, or at least they all knew about. Like, this is a loophole in the system that we can use to purchase our homes and make it beneficial. So Eric Swallowswell he's cooked. They're all going to jail. They're fucking cooked. And here's some details. Where's slide number 8? There we go. Disgraced Representative Eric Swallowswell has been referred to the DOJ for potential criminal charges after evidence of mortgage fraud was found by FHFA Chair Bill Pulte, per NBC. Swallowswell not only committed mortgage fraud, he deemed himself ineligible to be a member of Congress, as he declared his D.C. residence his primary residence. No public record searches show a home owned or leased by Swallowswell in California. Oh, so he claimed that his house in D.C. was his primary home, so he couldn't represent California. What an idiot. What an idiot. Members of Congress are required under Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution to be inhabitants of the state they represent at the time of their election. Swallowswell was not and is not an inhabitant of California, it seems. So now he's going to lose his congressional seat. He's going to lose his congressional seat if he hasn't already, and he's going to go to jail. Double whammy. Double whammy. But I've been sick of Swallowswell, and it's about time that they got rid of his ass. It's about time Swallowswell took a hike. So I'm glad to see him go. I really am. Now, let's get to this article really quick. Yeah, this NPR article before we move on to the Epstein business. The government shutdown is over, but not everything is back to normal. So let's see what that's about. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is officially over after President Trump signed a bill passed by Congress on Wednesday night. The federal government is reopening, but after 43 days on pause, things may not return to business as usual right away. For instance, federal workers are still awaiting back pay, and air travel disruptions are expected to linger. And some impacts could continue much longer than 6 weeks. Whether that's national parks trying to make up for lost visitor revenue or taxpayers waiting longer for refunds from a backlogged IRS. There's also the looming threat of another potential shutdown in the not too distant future, since this bill only funds the government through January 30th. Here's a look at where things stand for now. So this is the CR, the continuing resolution. This is not the big beautiful bill. This is the continuing resolution that expires on January 30th, 2026, which means they're going to have another vote. So will the Democrats try to play that game again? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Federal employees return to work awaiting back pay. Roughly 1.4 million federal workers have gone without pay for 6 weeks. Roughly half of them were required to keep working without paychecks, while hundreds of thousands of others were furloughed. Russ Vaught, director of the Office of Management and Budget, told agency heads to direct furloughed employees to return to work Thursday. Agencies take all necessary steps to ensure that offices reopen in a prompt and orderly manner on Thursday, Vaught wrote in a Wednesday memo. The timing of back pay is a different question. After the government shutdown ending in January 2019, then the longest in history, Congress passed a law ensuring back pay for federal workers at the earliest date possible after the lapse in appropriations ends, regardless of scheduled pay dates. But Trump appeared to suggest otherwise in public comments last month, leaving many feds worried. The bill that Congress passed to end the shutdown guarantees back pay. It also reverses several agencies' attempted staffing reductions during the shutdown, which were paused by a federal judge, and prevents additional layoffs of federal employees through January. Sean Southworth, a federal employment attorney, said in an Instagram video that the timing of back pay will vary by agency based on their payroll providers, but most employees should start seeing deposits within days. Many employees historically saw deposits within the first business days after reopening, he says, of the last shutdown. A minority may roll to the next cycle if the system needs extra processing. The bill Congress passed to reopen the government funds the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, through September 2026. The program, which some 42 million Americans rely on for food assistance, has been the subject of much uncertainty and an escalating legal battle in recent weeks. The Trump administration said last month that it would suspend SNAP funding in November due to the shutdown, prompting a wide outcry and a series of legal challenges. While the administration initially said it would comply with 2 rulings requiring it to provide at least partial funding for SNAP in November, it balked and ultimately appealed to the Supreme Court after one of those judges said it must fund the program fully for the month. The Supreme Court paused that order and extended that pause again on Tuesday, with the end of the shutdown in sight. At this point, beneficiaries in some states have gotten their full monthly allocations, while others have gotten partial payments or nothing at all. Reopening the government means restarting SNAP, but it's not clear how quickly full payments will resume, since that varies by state. And as NPR has reported, many who rely on the program are worried that benefits could be cut again. Yeah, it could if January 30th comes around and the Democrats decide to pull this bullshit again. The Smithsonian, which encompasses 21 museums and the National Zoo, says its reopening will be gradual. Its website says the National Museum of American History, as well as the National Air and Space Museum and its Virginia Annex, the Stephen F. Udvar Hazy Center, will open their doors on Friday. All other museums and the zoo, including its beloved live animal cams, will reopen to the public on a rolling basis by Monday. The shutdown snarled air travel in a triangle that experts say is beyond a quick fix. Escalating shortages of air traffic controllers who have been required to work without pay caused delays and disruptions at airports nationwide since early October. Then last week, the Federal Aviation Administration ordered airlines to reduce air traffic at 40 of the country's busiest airports, starting by 4% and ramping up to 10% by this Friday. The FAA announced Wednesday that it would freeze flight reductions at the current 6% level, citing a rapid improvement in controller staffing. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said air traffic controllers will get a lump sum payment equal to 70% of their back pay within 48 hours of the shutdown ending. The agency says it will continue to assess whether the system can gradually return to normal operations. Airlines and aviation regulators have warned that flight disruptions are likely to continue once government reopens. Airlines had to adjust their schedules to reduce flights, and those changes can take time to reverse. It's going to take a bit to unwind, and the responsibility is not going to fall completely on the air traffic control operation. Former FAA Administrator Randy Babbitt told NPR's All Things Considered on Tuesday. Randy Babbitt, huh? Isn't that the same last name as Ashley Babbitt? A good deal of responsibility will be the carriers getting their schedules and the aircraft and personnel back in the right positions to resume normal flying. Air travel experts have told NPR that even after the shutdown, lingering impacts could potentially complicate Thanksgiving travel, which is always a hectic time to fly. And then they go into the national parks and everything else that's affected. So we don't really care. So not everything is back to normal in the sense that everything is not going to reopen just at the snap of a finger, at the drop of a hat. Now, what else is going to happen? Well, here's one. What the hell is this shit? Get this off my fucking screen. So this is from VT, and it says White House gives major update on Donald Trump's promise to give $2,000 to almost everyone in America. And again, I believe this could be part of the financial reset that's slated to happen. Can we get bigger? No? Okay. There we go. President Donald Trump is pushing ahead with a bold new proposal to send $2,000 dividend checks to Americans funded by revenue from tariffs. The announcement made via social media over the weekend came with a pointed message. People that are against tariffs are fools, Trump declared. Yeah, they're fools. Despite skepticism from his own Treasury Secretary, the White House is standing firm. Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Wednesday, the president remains committed to making the plan happen, though she did not offer details on how it would work and who would qualify. Sorry, I just had to yawn. The president made it clear he wants to make it happen, Leavitt told reporters per ABC News, so his team of economic advisors are looking into it. Questions grow around how the payments would work. The confident tone from the White House follows a less certain statement by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who suggested the payments might not take the form of direct checks. A tariff dividend may come in lots of forms, Bessent said on ABC News this week. He added it could be just the tax decreases that we are seeing on the president's agenda. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility on auto loans. Those are substantial deductions that are being financed in the tax bill. And the deductions on the auto loans is where the interest you pay on that loan becomes tax deductible. So if you buy the car for $20,000 and it's paid off, and you paid, another $9,000 in interest, that $9,000 now becomes tax deductible. Bessent also admitted he hadn't spoken with Trump directly about the payout proposal. Trump's social media post did not clarify eligibility or the timeline. Previously, Trump-backed stimulus checks were made available to individuals earning up to $75,000 and couples earning up to $150,000. If this new initiative used a $100,000 income threshold, roughly 150 million Americans could be eligible, according to Erica York at the Tax Foundation. That would put the total cost at around $300 billion. Funding shortfall could drive up national debt. As of September 30th, tariff revenue totaled $195 billion, far short of what would be needed to pay out $2,000 to every eligible American. To bridge the gap, the administration may opt to use projected revenue instead. The Treasury Department has forecast $3 trillion in tariff income over the next decade, but tapping into future earnings would mean adding to the national debt, which already exceeds $38 trillion. The new tariffs scheduled to kick in next week include a 50% tax on cabinets and potentially a 100% tax on branded or patented pharmaceuticals. Trump has called these measures essential, arguing that tariffs are helping make the U.S. the richest, most respected country in the world. Still, some economists are skeptical that tariff income alone could support the scale of the promised dividend payments. Now, for those of you who still have a little trouble understanding the tariffs because there's so much misinformation out there, it's basically this. These countries, these foreign countries with these slave factories, are able to manufacture their goods for cheap. These companies can go to those countries, manufacture their goods for pennies on the dollar, and then ship those goods back to the United States for the free, just the shipping cost, and resell those goods back to us here in America at inflated prices, right? So essentially what the tariffs are doing is it's creating a paywall where anybody that wants to hustle on our block, in other words, sell their products, their imported products in America, they now have to pay a fee to the federal government, which is the tariff. That's essentially what it is. So before, we were letting the whole world hustle on our block for free. Now Trump's saying, well, you can hustle on our block, but you got to pay a fee. And what's going to happen is for a lot of these companies, when those tariffs or those fees become, what's the word? When those fees become too expensive for them to make the profit margin, meet the profit margins they need to meet, eventually what they're going to do is they're going to stop manufacturing overseas, and they're going to be then incentivized to manufacture here in the United States domestically in order to avoid having to pay the tariffs. So either way, you're going to pay to hustle on our block. You either going to set up shop on our block and hire the people on our block to hustle on our block, or if you're going to hire people overseas and produce your products overseas, you're going to pay that fee to come hustle on our block. So you either pay that fee by paying the federal government and keeping your operation elsewhere, but selling your products here, or you pay the people by setting up your operation here and hiring our people to manufacture and sell your products. So it's a win-win for America. Because either way, we either get more domestic manufacturing, which means more made in America goods, which means better quality, or the federal government gets to raise more revenue, and eventually the revenue they raise will offset the amount of taxes we're being forced to pay here in the country. In fact, Trump's overall goal was to completely eliminate the income tax and replace that revenue with the tariff revenue. But the only way to completely eliminate the income tax is to eliminate all the expenses that that income tax is justified by. In other words, all the stupid shit that we don't need that our income tax money is being wasted on, you cut out the waste. You cut out the waste. You cut out the necessity for the tax revenue. You cut out the necessity for the tax revenue. You pave the way for significant tax cuts. That's how that's supposed to work. And it would work if we didn't have so many saboteurs called the Democratic Party within our government. It would work, just like the wall would have worked if we didn't have saboteurs in our government fighting for the border to stay open. You see what I'm saying? My computer's really lagging today for some reason. And I don't know why, but it's really, really lagging. And guys, don't forget to hit the Cash App, support the show. Hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. Shout out to my brother Gary on the PayPal. Appreciate that support, brother. I just saw that. Shout out to my man Gary, man. Appreciate that love, my brother. On a Thursday, too. You guys are awesome, man. We got 3 supporters on the board on an off night. Look at that. It seems like my plan's working. Going live more consistently is going to generate more revenue, bring more viewers. It seems to be working. So guess what? This is the program. Anyway, there it is. Democrats just blocked Representative Tim Burchett's push to bring the Epstein files straight to the House floor. Burchett, I made the motion. They blocked it. If there was something on Trump, they would have released it. You see? So as the liberal media is trying to have you convinced that Donald Trump is down with Epstein and he's in the Epstein files and all that shit, for some strange reason, though, the Democrats keep insisting on covering it up. You think they're really that interested in protecting Trump? If you think so, you are as delusional as a feminist. No, you are as delusional as a transgenital. That's your level of delusion. And this is what we've been saying. Aside from the fact that we know the whole Trump Epstein being buddies and shit is bullshit. They were cool until they were not. Shout out to Minister Jap for breaking it down like that. They were cool until Trump found out the bullshit Epstein was on, and then they were not cool. That's how that went. And we had 4 years of Democratic rule under Biden, and for some reason, the Epstein files didn't even get mentioned. Why is that? You really think the Democrats are that interested in covering up for Trump? As much as they've been attacking Trump and going after Trump, you really think if they had something real solid in the Epstein files on Trump, they wouldn't have found a way to release it? Rather than just making themselves look like idiots and trying to make up shit, forging documents and all kinds of stupid shit? You really think they would have done all that if they had Trump in the Epstein files? Think about it. Again, think logically. Does it make sense? And then, of course, you got the Epstein victims vindicating Trump. You got Ghislaine Maxwell vindicating Trump. William Barr, who was the attorney general at the time of Epstein's arrest, vindicating Trump. And he even said, if Trump was implicated in the Epstein files, I would have released it. I would have leaked it, making it clear that Donald Trump is not implicated in the Epstein files. And all these clowns on YouTube running around celebrating as if it's something to celebrate, they have fallen for the mainstream media delusion. So they're now no different than the mainstream media. They're just the alternative media version of CNN. But their quality of content is just as garbage, because the same garbage you'll get when you turn on cable news is the same garbage you'll get when you go watch their live streams. So what's the difference? Might as well keep watching CNN, right? And people don't realize that every time they buy into the mainstream media narrative, they let themselves up just to let themselves down. And this is what keeps them in the heightened emotional state, because they're on this emotional roller coaster where they get excited, like, yeah, we finally got him. And then it turns out to be bullshit. And it's like, oh, damn, could have had him. Just like when they were doing the criminal case against Trump. Did you know Trump appealed the 34 felony case and won? And the 34 felony case got thrown out completely. It's gone. Nobody's reporting on it. Did you guys know that? I was saving that for Friday, but I figured I'd mention it now. Yeah. Case is gone. But while the case was going on, first they were in the news saying Trump faces up to 40 years in prison. Then it turned to Trump faces probation. Then it turned to Trump may not face any consequences at all. Like, what the fuck? And that just goes to show you how much of a fool they think you are. So you follow their networks, you support their networks, and all they do is constantly make a fool out of you. Almost sounds like being a married man. Married black man, I should say. Because that's the type of shit we got to deal with. This is why the manosphere didn't stay the manosphere for very long, and it quickly morphed into the black manosphere. Because black men realized that, well, we have a set of unique challenges with our women that other races of men don't have to deal with. So for those black men in the manosphere spaces amongst, men of other races voicing their issues, they couldn't really get the support that they needed, because those other men of those other races could not identify with those men, with those black men and the issues that they were having. So the black men kind of had to click up and form their own little circle and have their own discussions, which I think is perfectly fine. I don't blame them for that at all. You go where you can get, where you can get understanding. And if you're talking to people who've never experienced what you've experienced or can identify with what you experienced, you'll never be able to get that true, full understanding. It's almost like for me, I live in a separate state from two of my kids, and my youngest, the baby, I have him. He's here with us. And it's very depressing at times. So I isolate a lot, and I kind of bury myself in work sometimes. And I end up neglecting R&B Bay a lot. And, she complains about it, which rightfully so. I'm not spending enough time with her. She has a right to say something about it. But it's hard for me to balance it, because when I try to explain to her what I'm going through mentally, she acts like she understands, but in my heart of hearts, I know she doesn't understand, because she's got all her kids under one roof. So she has no idea what it feels like to have to live separated from your kids. And then on top of that, have all your kids separated from each other. You know what I'm saying? So I never really get that understanding. So it always ends up being, her kind of lecturing me about the importance of spending time with her, and me like, yeah, whatever, trying to deal with it. But then, the emotional, the overwhelming emotions of missing my children tend to get the best of me. And I don't like being sad. When I get sad, I get angry. So when that shit makes me sad, I stay by myself, because if I hang around people, I'm more likely to get angry. I don't piss myself off. Other people piss me off. So if I'm sad and I know I'm teetering on the edge of becoming pissed off, I will isolate and stay away for the sake of peace, my peace and theirs, because I don't want to be in there irritated and snapping on the kids and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not cool. So I'd rather just not be there. So I can't be present because I'm dealing with things that you will never understand. So you can't help me deal with these things. All you can do is make my journey in dealing with and accepting this situation more difficult, because on top of the pressure of having to live every day without my children, now I have to live with being nagged about not spending time with you when I can't even spend time with my fucking babies like you're a grown adult. You know what I'm saying? So finding understanding is very important. It's very important, and it's very difficult sometimes when you're in a relationship with somebody that can't really relate to the problems that you're dealing with. It's difficult, because it's like, yeah, I would love to spend time with you. I love spending time with you, but I feel guilty because I should be spending that time with my kids and I can't. You don't fucking need me. My children need me. So how dare you complain to me about neglecting you? If you feel that way about me not being around and we live in the same house, how do you think my children feel? So how can I ever take your complaint seriously when I have a more serious issue in my mind to deal with? You see what I'm saying? So it's very, very, very difficult at times to deal with that shit. But what I don't do is I don't crash out or don't lash out. I have done that in the past, but I try not to do that. And I know myself. I know what triggers me. I know what pisses me off. I know what upsets me. So, like I said, I know myself well enough to know when I need to take a step back and isolate for a minute and be alone and just deal with my thoughts. And most men that are destined to be great deal with that type of shit. Like we're constantly consumed in our thoughts on how to make this better. And you know what would make it better is being able to significantly increase my income. If I can make enough money to where I can travel across the country at the drop of a hat, whenever I felt like it, and I could afford to buy myself days off, that would definitely help with that problem, because now I can go see my kids whenever and pick them up, bring them up here, take them back down to Florida, whatever, and everything's all good. Now I don't have to worry about that. So when I sit around isolated thinking about my kids, I'm actually really trying to figure out a way to be able to finance an operation that would allow me to spend more time with my children, because that's what's important to me. That's my legacy. So, in the wise words of a pimp named Slickback, when I'm thinking about how to make this money, I could give a fuck about a bitch. No offense, but that's how he said it. But it's true. That's the thought. Like, you are not a priority. You cannot be a priority because I have bigger fish to fry, unless you want me to remain mediocre and stay away from my kids, and then you can have all the time with me that you want. And maybe I'll live to be the ripe old age of 55 before I die from a heart attack because I've been living with a broken heart my whole fucking life. We could always go that route. But no. Most of the problems that we have in this country, it stems from money. And if we are given an opportunity where we can have more money to invest, to turn around and make more money, then we should take advantage of it, because we all got problems that we're dealing with. I just shared with you some of mine. And at the bottom, at the root of it all, what would solve it is having more money. You know what I'm saying? What would solve that problem is having more cash. So How do I occupy my time? My time. What occupies my thoughts? Thoughts on how to make more money. And it's very hard to think of ways to make more money when I'm laid up in bed watching fucking chick flicks. I feel like I'm wasting time. I feel like I'm wasting my life. And I know it's not a good thing. It's pretty unhealthy and unbalanced because I should be, happy to spend time with my woman and all that. But it's hard to be happy when I'm missing the most important part of my heart. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to be happy when I'm missing my children. It's very hard. Honestly, I think I've been living in a state of depression since I left Florida, like, to tell you the truth, to be honest with you. I never was a liquor drinker, and I started drinking liquor. I had to put it down for a while, but I started up again. It's not nearly as bad as it was before, but it's getting there. And this is what I was talking about on that show Monday night. I don't even know how I got into all this, but this is what I was talking about on that show Monday night. Like, for the women, if you want your man to be great and you want your man to have everything or achieve everything he wants to achieve in this world, sometimes you got to get the fuck out the way. That's a sacrifice you have to make. You have to spend those lonely nights and go without him because he's going to be up late. Like, for example, like my dad, right? Before my dad made his first million, when he was starting his company, I remember this vividly. My mom would always complain that he wasn't spending enough time with her. The same shit I'm going through right now. And I would leave. I was fresh out of high school, and I was driving and everything. So I would leave about 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon or in the evening to go hang out with my girl because I ain't never had no homeboys and shit. Well, I had homeboys, but I ain't never really hung out with them like that. I would always be hanging out with my girl because I don't want to hang with no dudes. I want to hang with girls. So I go hang out with my girl. I'd come home about maybe midnight, 1 o'clock. And when I leave, my dad was sitting at the computer. I come home midnight, 1 o'clock. This man, I could still see the glow from his computer screen coming out of his office. Man, still on the computer all night. And I remember those nights. And the next thing you know, a couple years later, we score a contract and we're in the islands and I'm filling out invoices for the week. You know what I'm saying? For 20 grand, 30 grand, 80 grand. And that's when my dad reached the height of his greatness. And I understood that. And that helped me understand what it takes to be great. Isolation. Because when you're isolated, you can focus. And when you're focused, you're on point. And when you're on point, you make better decisions. And you see more opportunities. Because I'm pretty sure some of those nights when my dad was up on the computer for 7, 8 hours a night, if he was laying up in bed watching Along Came Polly cuddled up with my mom, he would have never got that opportunity to make that million. And he would have been doomed to mediocrity. And I know for a lot of you guys, especially, also for myself, some of us, we have very sharp minds and a high level of intelligence, and we work really hard and we have great ideas. We just have to find a way to put those ideas to work and make them work. Yeah, I hate that fucking movie, Antara. I fucking hate that movie. They abused the shit out of that ferret in that movie. I hate that movie. I love ferrets and I hate that fucking movie. But for a lot of us, we're destined for greatness at some point, at some level, but we just haven't found the formula yet. And that's what those long, sleepless nights is about. It's about figuring out the formula. And if you ask anybody that has achieved the heights of greatness, they'll tell you, yeah, those sleepless nights, those long days in the office is what got me here. I didn't get here, playing fucking tiddlywinks. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get here being fucking romantic. Okay? I didn't get here being soft and being weak and being sweet and being compliant. I didn't get here by putting my head down and saying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. No, I got here because I fought to get here. I got here because I sacrificed time. I sacrificed hours. I put in real effort to get a real result. It's funny. R&B Bass said something to me that really frustrated me. One of those times when she was telling me I don't spend enough time with her. She said you don't put in enough effort in this relationship. And I was immediately offended because see, she was thinking from an emotional level, right? And I'm thinking from a logical level. So we're already speaking two different languages. And I know what she meant now, right? Like she meant like I wasn't pouring enough of myself into her because I was preoccupied with work, which is totally understandable. But at the time when she said it, it felt like she was downplaying all the effort I was putting into elevating our lives, because when I first got with her, she was living in an apartment. Kids ain't have no motherfucking yard. We got together. We got a house, a pretty decent sized house, a good sized house, lots of yard space, lots of parking. And now the kids got a fucking yard. So what do you mean I'm not putting in enough effort? When I met you, you didn't have a yard. Now we're together. You have a yard for your kids. And I bust my ass every day to make sure that we get to keep this roof and keep this fucking yard. So don't tell me about no goddamn effort, because if I wasn't putting in effort, you'd be right back in that apartment where I found you. And she was not happy to hear that, but it's all logical. So I was speaking from a place of logic, but she needed emotion. I'm a man. I can't operate out of emotion. I can't afford to operate out of emotion. Operating out of emotion costs me. It costs me time, it costs me money, and it costs me energy. The three things I cannot afford to waste. So when you tell me I need to put in more effort, that makes me feel like you don't see the actual effort that I'm putting in that you're benefiting from. And has the nerve to tell me this while the kids are playing in the fucking yard, which they couldn't do before because all they had to play in was a damn parking lot, which to me as a father is unacceptable. So I put in the effort to change that, and I put in the effort to maintain that. So don't tell me I need to put in more effort. That's offensive. Yeah, Antar, they need a new supply like a narcissist does. like a fucking narcissist. But you know what I come to realize? You know what she needs? Women need an ego boost. That's what they need. Women have bigger egos than men. And once you understand that, all that emotional bullshit, all it is they want you to feed their ego. That's why when you tell a woman she did something wrong, it's like pulling teeth to get her to take accountability, because you just hurt her ego. Because the ego is powered by emotions. And the fact that they run off emotions means that they operate off ego. So you got to feed that ego, otherwise that ego will devour you. And I found myself on that end of the stick as well. And it ain't fun. It ain't pretty. But the worst thing I can do to her, though, is ask her to make that sacrifice of allowing me to, do what I do and invest myself and my efforts into what I do to further elevate our lifestyles and fail at it. That's the worst thing I can do, because then she'll be right. I sacrificed all this time. I let you have all those sleepless nights when we could have been laid up watching Along Came Polly. And here we are 10 years later, and you're still in mediocrity. So you could have at least spent those 10 years of mediocrity with me, rather than by yourself cooking up some master plan. So essentially, the only thing I fear is failure. And that's why whatever I do, I try my damnedest best to be the best at it that I can be. When I started making videos and podcasting, I didn't know shit about podcasting. I didn't know shit about live streaming. I've never been on camera and talked to people before. Now you see me on camera, you think I've been doing this shit my whole life. Because it became something I loved, something I'm passionate about, and it also I was also able to turn it into a vertical or a revenue stream. And yeah, the revenue's up and down, but when it's up, and it has potential for growth. It's just like when you run your own business, right? Sometimes you'll make money, sometimes you won't make money, but as long as you stay in business, you have that potential for growth. And believe it or not, I spend a lot of time on these shows. I spend a lot of time putting these shows together. Because I need everything to be right and exact. And that's why I also tell you guys, if I'm wrong, correct me, because everything has to be right and exact. Can't be great if you keep getting shit wrong. You feel me? But anyway, that was one hell of a sidebar, wasn't it? Anyway, I'm telling y'all all my damn business and shit. Motherfuckers probably done unsubscribed and all that. But anyway, so here's Epstein's flight log that was put out years ago. And guess whose name ain't on it? That's right, Donald Trump. And this is the flight log to the pedophile island. Now, before Trump knew that Epstein was a pervert and was into the shit that he's into, he did take a flight on Epstein's plane one time from Mar-a-Lago to New York. So his name does appear on a flight log, but it's the flight log to New York on a domestic flight. This flight log are all the names that went to Pedophile Island. And all of these people right here were picked up in the first round of mass arrests that occurred in 2018. It was planned in 2017, and all these people were picked up in 2018. Some of them were replaced with body doubles and CGI avatars, and others just completely disappeared, and we never saw or heard from them again. But again, whose name is not on this list? Right, Donald Trump. There goes all the D's, no Donald Trump. Dan Schneider's on there. Go figure. Now, Kanye West has been running around, bugging out in the media, and he said something very cryptic before he disappeared for a while and then resurfaced with that Bianca Censori chick, right? And he said, if I disappear, after he exposed the small hats and shit, he said, if I disappear and I come back talking crazy, it's not me. And I thought that was interesting because this was said years after I had first started looking into the whole disappear and replace people, body doubles, CGI avatars, and that type of shit. And I had already been, exposed to the fact that this is something that the establishment does. They will take celebrities that they put in positions of power and positions of influence, and if that celebrity doesn't play ball, they'll simply replace them with a lookalike. And there's an entire celebrity impersonator industry where they got their pick of the litter. They could find the best lookalike and the best impersonator. And remember, they're not just there to have the look of the celebrity, they're impersonators. So they have the persona, they can mimic the voice and everything. So it's like a clone of the original celebrity. So it's not hard to replace these people. And I believe that the Kanye that's running around now ain't the real Kanye. And somebody allegedly came across this guy sitting on a bench. I don't know what city he's in. And it's funny how his sweater says "Lucky Me." And they say he bears a striking resemblance to Kanye West. Now, what do you guys think? You guys think that looks like Kanye? Because I think it looks like Kanye. And he has reported that people within his circle of handlers have been threatening to, have him committed to the hospital and put away. So what do you guys think? Put a 1 in the chat if you think that's Kanye. I definitely think it's Kanye for several reasons, aside from the fact that he bears a striking resemblance. Put a 1 in the chat if you think it's him. Put a 2 in the chat if you don't think it's him. We're not up. That's not going to be the point of debate. I just want to know where you guys are at with it before I share my take. So put a 1 in the chat if you think that's Kanye. Put a 2 in the chat if you don't think that's Kanye. Elsine on Rumble, she says she thinks that's Kanye. She put a 1. What's happening on YouTube, man? Where y'all at on YouTube? My YouTube chat's real slow tonight. What's happening? So my YouTube people just ain't gonna say nothing, huh? Hey guys, we got 49 watching and 34 likes. Y'all got to get them likes up. Get the likes up. God dang it. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that's Kanye. Put a 2 in the chat if you don't think that's Kanye. Please, guys, I need your participation here. Get the likes up. Let me bounce over to Rumble and see what's happening. So, LC, it looks like you're the only person that voted. Okay. Sharud says 2. He don't think that's Kanye. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's cool that the first response we got on YouTube was somebody saying they don't think that's him. I mean, if you want to come up and explain your reasoning for not thinking that's him, that, just let me know. I'll drop the link for you. I'll be more than happy to hear your explanation. I think it's only fair as I'm going to give you mine, right? Now, first things first, I believe that this is Kanye. James Thomas says he doesn't think so. Okay. So we got 1 says yes, that's Kanye. 2 say no, that's not Kanye. Any more votes? Let me see something really quick. Lobotomy haircut. So we only got 2 votes. On YouTube, and they say no, that's not Kanye. 1 vote on Rumble, and Elsine says yes, that is Kanye. Anybody else gonna vote? Antara, free thinker, what was going on? Queen Scorp, Brian Butler, where the hell are you guys, man? What's happening? James says you reaching, you know that ain't no damn Kanye. Sharud says Kanye's not that tall. Gary P says too. All right, so we got a lot of we got several people on YouTube that don't believe it. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Reel me back in, please. So says Kanye's not that tall, but this guy don't look that tall. It's just the camera angle that makes him look tall. He can't be no more than 5'10", 5'11", and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Kanye is like 5'11", isn't he? And they do this to people. Remember Delonte West? Remember what happened to Delonte West? How he just disappeared from the NBA, and then one day he was found on the street homeless and barely even remembered who he was? So this wouldn't be... So if, in fact, this is Kanye, let's just play that game for a second. That would mean that he had the Delonte West treatment. And what did Delonte West do? Delonte West, and it's funny, his last name is West, just like Kanye. Delonte West was sleeping with LeBron James's mother while they were both teammates on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Delonte West was then asked to stop sleeping with LeBron James's mother, and he continued to do it, and LeBron James retaliated by having him blackballed from the NBA. The man lost everything, and he's homeless on the street. And it's funny that they have the same last name. I just thought of that. But if this is Kanye, he's got that weird haircut, right? Which is, and I could be reaching, James. You might be right. Yeah, Sharud, you see, this is why it sounds like I'm reaching, but when I start explaining, motherfuckers be like, oh shit, word, son, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, Delonte West ended up homeless for fucking LeBron James's mama. Now, when people get lobotomies back in the day, so Sharud, does that change your opinion at all? Let me ask you that. When they would give people lobotomies, this is what they would do. They would like shave the top of their heads, and then they would start like sticking the needles in their skulls and shit, right? And there is absolutely no reason why this individual would have that haircut. Unless, of course, he was lobotomized. Sharud said yes. So it does change your opinion. You see? Facts matter, my friend. Facts matter. I love it. I love it. I won Sharud over. So Sharud has officially changed his vote to 1. So now we're 2-2. We went from 3-1 to 2-2. Oh, shit. We got 2 more ones over on Rumble. Kansas says 1. They believe that's Kanye. Roman Law says 1. Believe that's Kanye. Okay. Good thing I keep checking on my Rumble, folks. I've won Sharud over, ladies and gentlemen. Sharud has been bought and paid for. No, check this out. Delonte West, homeless. Watch this. That's him. That's Delonte West, former NBA player. Now he's living on the street. That is a very large woman. That's him there getting arrested. Former NBA player. Was sleeping with LeBron James's mama, and he had him blackballed from the NBA. And you see how his hair is all grown out like that? Well, this guy, the Kanye lookalike, his hair is about that long too, which means he's probably been, kept or homeless in the street just as long. and he's got the lobotomy haircut. What about you, James Maxwell? Have you changed your opinion with Delonte West? Are you gonna come aboard with Sherrod or what? You gonna come aboard the crazy ship with Sherrod, or you gonna stay on the shore? What you gonna do, James? You had some strong words for me there, brother. What you got to say now? Man, that's why I fuck with y'all, man. At least you see, and this is what I mean. On the conservative side of things, we're free thinkers. We have free thought. Because I'm not going to block you because you disagree with me. I'll block you if you disrespect me, but I'm not going to block you because you disagree with me. All right, James going to stand on business. James standing on business. So good, James. That's good, James. That's good. Stand on business. I respect it. Sarah G over on Rumble says that she thinks that's Kanye. All right, cool, James. Cool. Now, here's the other thing, right? The sweater, it says lucky me. And I thought that was kind of weird. It was almost like a cryptic message, right? So if that is Kanye, it looks like he's been lobotomized and he's sitting there and he's completely frozen the whole time he's sitting there. This is just a still image, but there's actually a video on Instagram of him sitting there at the bench and somebody's filming him and they're like, oh shit, that looked like Kanye. And he gave him some food and shit. And he put it like right here on the sweater. But I want you to look at the hands, right? You see that thumb right there? And you see that hand, how he's holding that left hand like that? Let me put my camera on real quick. I'll keep Google open. You see that left hand, how it's like this? I've seen videos, and if you can find old videos of young Kanye in the studio while he's on the mixer board and the music is playing and he's jamming to it, his hand would like go like this while he's jamming. He would be like, you know what I mean, fucking with the mixer, and his hand would be cocked just like how it is right there. And that caught my attention too. And then I looked at his right hand and I looked at his thumb. And I have some pictures to compare it to. And there's young Kanye 20 years ago when he first signed to Rockefeller. You see that backwards curve in his thumb? Like everybody kind of has a curve like that. But some people's curves in their thumbs are a lot deeper than others. And that's a pretty deep curve right there, right? Look at that. Look at that. I don't know. It's pretty close. James says Kanye jaws are way more swollen than that ninja on the bench. Well, that's when he was eating good. He's been homeless. You see how skinny Delonte West looked in the picture? In the picture of him being homeless, he was much thicker than that when he was in the NBA. And you see the hand, the left hand right there with the bent wrist like that. Check this one out. This is him performing with 2 Chainz, and this article was from 2016, right? So this is before all the weird shit started happening. Look at the hand. Look at the left hand. Now he's performing, so his hand is a little more relaxed, but it's almost in the same configuration as the guy on the bench. See that? I don't know. James might be right. Maybe I'm reaching. I just thought I would share this with you guys because I know that Kanye running around right now, the one that just apologized to the small hats, that ain't Kanye. Because Kanye don't apologize. When the fuck else have you ever seen Kanye West apologize to anybody? I haven't. And I've been a Kanye West fan since a college dropout. Hell, I've been a Kanye West fan since like 2002. When Dame started shouting him out. And I didn't know how to pronounce his name. So I'll call him Kane West. until I learned his name was Kanye. But that hand, man, those thumbs and that hand, bro, that shit threw me a little bit. I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on that. Because I think that's Kanye. I think that's him. Yeah, I was a fan. I was a fan when Through the Wire came out. In fact, one of the first songs that I ever recorded, I recorded on the Through the Wire beat. And I was in 9th grade when I did that. James says that might not be Kanye doing all that apologizing, but the ninja on the bench, come on, son. Well, you know what, James? That don't, you know what I'm saying? That don't make no difference in terms of like, you know, what's really going on and how we're being affected by the politics and shit. Yeah, rap does suck now. It definitely does. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to agree with me that that's Kanye on the bench. I think it is. You think it ain't. You know what I'm saying? Just like we would sit around and argue about who is the best player in the NBA. You know, some people was like, oh, Kobe. Other people's like Jordan, whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those kind of things. But it is pretty interesting to see. It is pretty interesting to see. And maybe that's what becomes of celebrities that buck the system. I mean, we saw that happen to Delonte West, you know. So who's to say they didn't do it to Kanye? And you see the way they do it, it's really slick how they do it too. They would use, every state, right, has laws where they can have the police take you into custody and then turn you over to the hospital. And then the hospital would then hold you hostage in the psych ward. And they'll put you on a 72-hour hold. And they'll hold you for 72 hours either in the hospital in the psych ward, or they'll ship you after the first day. They'll ship you to a mental hospital, a psychiatric hospital, and they'll hold you there. But the thing is, the way the laws are written in the states, that 72-hour hold is discretionary, which means, so let's say, you know, you get fucked up one day and you're like, I'm going to kill myself. And you tripping and the police come because you said you're going to kill yourself. They render you to the psych ward at the hospital. The hospital now says you're a threat to yourself and you're a threat to others. We got to put you in the psych. We got to take you to the psychiatric hospital, to the nut house. They take you over to the nut house and then they say we got to put you on a 72-hour hold. After 72 hours, you go talk to, you know, one of the shills, one of the quacks that calls themselves a doctor over there. And they will then decide whether you get released or not. But if they're working for a group of people who are part of a conspiratorial agenda to keep you out of society, all that doctor has to do is say, you're not ready for release. You need another 3 weeks up in here. And then boom, that 72-hour hold now becomes 3 weeks. Then after 3 weeks, you see the doctor again. They say, oh, you're still crazy. Now you got to do another 6 months. And they can drag that shit on for up to 3 years, if not more. And what do you think will happen if you're not around to go to work and pay your bills? You're going to lose your family. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your house. And that will send a man over the edge. So it's like they deliberately lock you away and confine you to make sure that your entire life falls apart and you got nothing left so they can keep you there. And that's how they get these celebrities. So when Kanye said he was involuntarily committed, his handlers had the police take him into custody and take him to the psych ward at the hospital, and they held him there under guard against his will. Yeah, they do that shit. In Florida State, it's called the Baker Act. In California, it's called the 5150, Code 5150. And every state has a version of those laws. And the worst part about it is once they take you to the psych ward and they deem you mentally unfit to be in society, so they basically deem you mentally ill, they still give you paperwork to sign. So they get you to sign consent forms when you're deemed mentally ill. How is that even legal? So let me get this straight. I'm too crazy to be outside, but I'm not too crazy to read this contract and sign it. And the last time I checked, no signed contract in court has validity if any of the signers was deemed mentally incapacitated or mentally incapable of reasonable thought. But yet they still use the consent forms to lock your ass away. And then on top of that, if you do manage to escape the psych ward at the hospital, they'll call the cops on you like you some kind of criminal. And then the cops will go looking for you. And if they catch you, they'll arrest you and take you back. And then when they take you back, that's when you get the straitjacket. That's when you get the restraints. And if that don't work, or if you're too unruly, then that's when they'll inject you with some shit and drug you up to sedate you. And I don't know, I know several people who've been through that process, and I don't know one single person that, one, got released promptly after the 72-hour hold, and two, came back the same way they left when they went in. They all came back a whole different person in terms of personality. The light was gone. They're so doped up, they dope them up so much they get on a high that they never come down from. And remember when Wendy Williams was held up in that hotel room in New York City and she couldn't leave? They had her under psychiatric watch. So they had guards at her door preventing her from leaving. So essentially she was being held hostage. And the excuse they use is they deem you a danger to yourself and others. And that's what they do to these celebrities. If his nose is clean and he's not involved in any crimes, they're doing that to Wendy because Wendy's exposing shit. Remember, Wendy Williams was one of the first people to publicly expose Diddy. Remember that? Or have we forgotten? Wendy Williams was telling on motherfuckers. She was dropping names. That's why they had to get rid of her. Yeah, man. And I believe this is what they do to the celebrities. Because remember, these celebrities are not free to roam about the cabin, so to speak. They have handlers and they have management teams and people that are supposed to babysit them and tell them go here and you got to go there and you got to be here at this time and you got to be here at that time. So how hard would it be for the managers or whoever it is to set them up with the police to be taken into custody and then reprimanded to a psych ward somewhere? You know what I'm saying? How hard would that be? So, although some of you may not believe that's Kanye West, and I can understand why, because what are the odds, right? I'm leaning more towards believing that it is him because, again, I've seen this playbook used on other celebrities before. I also heard when Kanye West said, if I ever disappear and come back, it ain't me. And he did disappear, and he came back, and it didn't look or sound or seem like him. So where did he go? Where did he go? And you see, that's part of the play. How some of you guys don't believe that's Kanye, that's part of the play. You lobotomize them, you dope them up, you put them out on the street, you leave them out there to starve, homeless. And who would ever believe that Kanye West would be out there like that? And if people see these celebrities out there and don't know that they're celebrities, guess what? The plan to get rid of them worked. So my conspiracy theorist mind can't help but think that that could possibly be Kanye West. I'm about 85% convinced that that's Kanye West. And that lobotomy haircut, he didn't do that himself. You know how you know he didn't do it himself? And it's recent? Take a good look at the head. You see how cleanly shaven it is? Crazy, dope fiend, homeless people, one, they don't cut their own hair. That's number one. You seen the picture of Delonte West homeless. His hair was not cut. And number two, let's say he did acquire some sort of device that he could cut his hair with, some clippers or something. You think it will be cut that clean? Like chrome dome clean? Somebody else did that. And it's eerily similar to the lobotomy haircuts. So if this is just some regular homeless person, why would he have needed a lobotomy? Unless it is Kanye and they needed him to not know that. And the hands, man, the hands. The hands. I can't get past the hands. The thumb. The wrist. I can't get past the hands. As soon as I saw this video, I immediately looked at everything. I noticed the lucky me on the sweater because Kanye was lucky, right? He got a record deal and became extremely rich and famous, so he was lucky. And he violated the rules and had to get removed from society. But if that is him, they didn't kill him. So he is lucky because normally they'd kill you. And I looked at the hands. I looked at the shoes even. Can't really tell much from the shoes. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's fucking with me. It's fucking with me. Because the thing is, like, had I not seen the Delonte West images or videos of him being homeless, I probably would have been on the same page as my brother James. I probably would have been on that too. Like, nah, that ain't Kanye. Ain't no way. He just looks like him, but that ain't him. But considering all the things that our government and the medical establishment and the entertainment industry is capable of, and the shit that they have done to other people, I can't just write this off and say, nah, that ain't him. I can't. And maybe I'm just Maybe I'm just a victim of knowing too much. Maybe I know too much, so I immediately assume worst case scenario. And perhaps if I was a little less knowledgeable, I could, remain in some version of ignorant bliss and just say, oh, it's just another homeless guy. He just happened to look like Kanye West with a lobotomy haircut. But I think that's him. And I think they did it like that because they need people to doubt that it's him. Because if enough people doubt that it's him and don't believe that it's him, well, they've essentially gotten away with getting rid of him. But if too many people see this and it starts going viral and they say, hey, that is Kanye, then somebody's going to go looking for him. And they might catch him in a moment of clarity like Delonte West. And he might be able to identify himself and explain what they did to him and blow their whole cover and expose the fake Kanye, which they really can't afford to happen. James says, so I guess his hair grew that fast. It was just earlier this week. Kanye was back bootlicking, and he had a low cut and his hair was dyed. That's what I'm saying, James. I don't believe that the person that they're showing us on camera is Kanye West. I don't believe that's him. Ever since he popped back up with Bianca Censori, I don't believe that's him. I don't believe that's the real Kanye West. That's what I'm saying. They're two different people. And this video is actually pretty old. This video was from the first time I saw this video was a few months ago, but I never really shared it. And when it popped back up on my feed and I saw it again, it kind of grabbed my attention because I saw it right after I saw the video clip of him apologizing to the small hats for the shit he was saying, which seemed totally out of character for Kanye because Kanye does not apologize. So then when I seen this video the first time, I was kind of more like you, James. I was like, maybe it's him, maybe it ain't, but I don't think it's him. Then I seen all the antics and I was already in doubt that the person doing all those antics was actually him, right? Because of what he said, if I disappear and come back, it ain't me. And then I saw the video of him apologizing to the small hats. So I started paying even more close attention. And then boom, this video comes across my Instagram feed again. And then I'm like, oh shit, they did this to Kanye so they can put the body double in there to make a fool out of him. That's why he put out the song about being gay with his cousin and all that shit. You think the real Kanye would say that shit? Do you really think so? Right, James. Gucci Man. I'm glad you brought that up. They saying the same thing about Gucci Man because when Gucci Man is out with his wife, they're like, they don't look like a couple. It's like, yeah, she's playing the role and she'll be on camera walking with him, but she won't be like up under him like a wife would be. So you get what I'm saying, James. I know you don't think I'm totally crazy. I might be a little crazy, but I'm not completely fucking crazy. And remember, this is coming from the guy, Citizen Man, who's got several streams over the years showing celebrities who have actually been replaced. And again, I noticed the same thing with Jay-Z and his daughter and Beyonce. They don't look like a family. He looks like an implant. Like they're not familiar with him. But yo, where are we at? I'm seeing 2 hours. Let me go to Rumble really quick. Rumble gives me a more accurate time. 2 hours and 19 minutes. So For those of you who believe it's Kanye, I'm with you. For those of you who don't think it's Kanye, I understand you. I'm not against you, but I understand you. It's hard to believe, but think about it. Have we not seen weirder shit than this in our adventures of, American politics and celebrity culture, in our studies of all these different aspects of media? Have we not seen weirder shit? But James, let me ask you this. I'm curious. What do you think? What do you think about the Gucci Man situation? Because I don't think that's Gucci either. But what do you think? You think that's Gucci? He just lost weight and got a foot taller, or or are you on board with the Gucci was replaced thing? Because you say you hear people saying that about Gucci Man, but I want to know what your thoughts are personally. If you'd be so kind as to share that with me, or share it with us, because everybody's going to see it. And guys, don't forget, please hit the Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo and support the show. We got 3 supporters so far for the night, and it's an off night. And I think that's awesome. And I did get 1 supporter on Monday night. I didn't, for some reason, Cash App did not notify me. When I was on the road, I had 1 brother hit the Cash App. That's my brother Robert. And he says, where we go one, we go all. So shout out to you, brother Robert. I hope you're watching. I hope you're watching, and I hope you get your shout out, my brother. So before we close out, I just want to get your opinion, James, on what you think about the Gucci Man thing. Is that, you think that's Gucci, or you think that's a replacement? And if you're skeptical, if you're one of those people, and this is not just for you, James, this is for anybody listening. If you're one of those people that's skeptical about the celebrity replacement theory, Akon actually admitted, matter of fact, I could show you better than I could tell you. Watch this shit. Akon has admitted to using his brother Abu Buthiam as a body double for shows during the early days of his career when he was overbooked. He also stated that his other brother Omar sometimes impersonated him without permission and even booked shows in his name. This practice was done before the internet made it easy for fans to verify performers, and the audiences would often not know the difference. See that? You see that? So the body double thing is not far from reality at all. And if Akon did it, who else did it? I went to a show that was supposed to be a Trick Daddy concert one time, and it was a Trick Daddy lookalike. It wasn't Trick, and I was sorely disappointed. Okay, James. James says, anything's possible. Why Gucci? He not that important to those Jews as a Kanye, so I'm up in the air. Those small hats. Well, James, remember, Gucci, I think, to answer your question, why Gucci? Here's why. Because at the time Gucci went to jail, he was famous, but he wasn't like world famous, right? So he was famous enough. And he was one of the first celebrities that they would have replaced. Because he was one of the first people that they were talking about was cloned. So I think Gucci was selected because he was a test run. He was a test run to see if, because he probably got murdered in jail or something. And they used the body double because they wanted to keep his rap career going, to keep the revenue stream going. So they found the body double, and said that was Gucci getting out of prison, and they put him on and made him Gucci Man. And they not only did they do that to keep the keep the money coming in, but they also did it to see, as a beta test, to see if people would actually buy it and believe it and not question it. And guess what? Even though people questioned it, the majority of people have bought it. Even the people who question it still call that person Gucci, even though he don't look nothing like Gucci. So I think they did Gucci as a test run because he was like B-list celebrity, C-list celebrity famous. So if it came out that people recognized that that wasn't Gucci and it was a body double, they could quiet it down, squash the story, and find a different strategy. You see what I'm saying? Because he was famous, but not so famous to where if it came out that it was a clone, the whole world would know. They'd be able to bury it very quickly because Gucci was only known amongst a certain demographic of music listeners. But once they were able to get people to believe it's him and buy into it, then he became this world famous, worldwide star with a, 10-kilogram gold chain around his neck and shit. Right, Sharud. They cloned Tyrone. The only difference is they're not using, lab equipment or genetics and test tubes and all that shit like you would imagine when you think of clones. All they're using is people that look alike, that fit the bill and can impersonate the person. Those are your clones. The impersonators are the clones. But James, I appreciate you being a good sport about it, man. We agree to disagree, but no harm, no foul. You got your opinion, I got mine, and I think that's fucking awesome. Because in the event that I'm wrong, you serve as a what's the word I'm looking for? You serve as a counterbalance, right? You serve as a check, one of the checks and balances to keep me right and exact. So I appreciate that. I always appreciate a little bit of opposition. Ain't never nothing wrong with that. That's necessary. That's necessary for correction. You know what I'm saying? So in Brazil, they found animals from another dimension. Or could they be animals from outside the ice wall that wandered their way into our circle? Because they find rare sea creatures all the time that they never seen before. So they could have been from outside the ice wall. You know what I mean? But anyway, tonight's show was pretty interesting. Government shutdown's finally over. Trump Epstein narrative falls apart. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope I made sense to you tonight. And that little tidbit about Kanye West and the clones, I think we're going to have to dig into that a little deeper because I do take a very keen interest in that. And I really like to know who's been replaced and who hasn't, because I don't know. It's just something I've always been into ever since I learned about it. Excuse me. Because for a long time, I was blissfully unaware that this was a thing until I found out that it was. And I first found out that it was by these celebrities using impersonators to fill in for them. And by what I just showed you guys on Google with Akon admitting that, he used his brother to fill in for him. Like, there you go. And people believed it. I even have a video of a guy who disguised himself as Lil Pump, the little white boy rapper with the tattoos all over his face and shit. He disguised himself as Lil Pump. He got to go backstage at a 21 Savage concert. He got to get in the club VIP for free. All the girls were trying to fuck him. He got free bottles, free food, all kinds of shit because they thought he was the rapper Lil Pump. So it's that easy. It's that easy. There was even a little thought experiment I did on a past show where I found a picture of a Snoop Dogg impersonator on the streets of Las Vegas. I took a picture of just the picture, put it on screen, and I asked everybody, I said, who's that in the picture? And damn near everybody was like, oh, that's Snoop. And then I showed them the caption saying it's an impersonator. So that's how easy it is to fool the public. So it wouldn't take much to get a body double in there, have them play the role, and make people believe it. It wouldn't take much at all. So, you know, nothing is ever off the table when it comes to these celebrities, when it comes to the entertainment industry, and when it comes to politics. Everything is possible. Yeah, I think Blueface been replaced, Bronze One. I'm glad you said that. Blueface definitely has been replaced. I don't know who that big goofy motherfucker is, but that ain't Blueface. And I saw a video clip where they were trying to explain that, oh, with the weight gain from when he was in jail, that's why his voice changed. No, he's a different person. Here's how I think it went down. Blueface got murdered in prison. The record label cashed in on the dead peasant insurance, and they took those millions from the dead peasant insurance, and they hired this body double to play the part of Blueface. That's what I think. And the same thing with Gucci. Because when you sign to these record labels, you sign up for that life insurance policy, and the record label is the beneficiary. So if you die, because here's how it works. The dead peasant insurance policy is designed to cover any losses that the company would be inflicted on the company in the event of the death of an employee. It's also designed to cover any financial losses that may be inflicted upon a creditor in the event of the death of a debtor. That means the lender would have insurance on the borrower. So if the borrower dies during the term of the loan, the lender then gets reimbursed by the insurance company, gets a claim by the insurance company. Remember 2020 was the year of the dead rapper? What else happened was going on in 2020? COVID. They couldn't do shows. The labels couldn't make money. So they started killing off the rappers and collecting the insurance money. And what happens with these rappers is when they get signed to these record deals, they get an advance. And that advance is not free money. That's money they have to pay back. So when they sign to the record label and they sign the record deal as an artist on the record label, they actually take that advance and they sign for that advance as a debtor, as a borrower. So the record label now becomes the lender. The artist now becomes the borrower. And the terms of repayment, of course, is in the record deal where they have to pay a percentage of their show money. They have to pay a percentage of their merch money, a percentage of their album sales money until that advance is paid off. And now they're basically making the profits off of what they were paying back to the record label, right? And because the artist is a debtor and the label is a creditor, they get that dead peasant insurance on the artist. So when the artist dies, they get paid not only the amount of money that the artist owed in the advance, but they get paid based on the artist's first round of sales, a projection of about 10 times that amount. So if the artist's first sales is like $1 million in sales and he dies and he owes the record label $2 million, the dead peasant insurance policy will pay that record label $10 million. So it's a very profitable game. So imagine Gucci Mane is a signed artist, goes to prison, gets killed in prison. Record label gets a couple $1 million for his death. They take some of those millions, hire a body double, boom, Gucci Mane's back, still making records, still selling records, still doing shows. We still getting our money, and we got the cash in on that insurance. It's a double payday. Why wouldn't they do it? There's more than enough incentive there for them to do it. So as crazy as it sounds, when you look at the reasoning behind them doing it, it literally makes perfect sense because the profits are insane. The profits are insane. James says something important. He says they're replacing, where's it at? They're replacing some of the brokest of the industry. Blueface. Nobody even knows him besides the local hood internet. Right. And if nobody knows him, he wasn't worth all those millions that he got paid on the record deal. So it would make sense to kill him, recoup the money, make a low profit, and hire a body double who can't rap and just have him be a social media clown, because then you don't have to pay him as much as you were paying the original Blueface. So you get the same branding, the same face of the brand for half the price. So you make double the profits off the original face. You bring in the replacement face. You continue making profits, but at half the cost. So it's not just a win-win. It's a 360 win. It's a win-win-win. James says it must don't cost much to clone people, because Blueface, they'd be losing all around the board. Yeah, it don't, because if all it takes is to hire an impersonator, remember, these are regular people, regular ass 9-to-5 motherfuckers who just happen to look like and are able to sound like certain celebrities. So you don't have to pay them much at all. As long as you pay them more than what a 9-to-5 would pay them, they'll do it. They'll do it, and they'll do that shit with passion, because they're making more money than they ever thought they would make, doing something that's essentially brainless, because they don't even have to be themselves. So yeah, it can't be very expensive. Sharud says, well, so what's going to happen now that music isn't selling anymore? Well, Sharud, it's the mainstream music that ain't selling no more. You know what's going to start selling? Underground music, independent music. That's what's going to start selling. You're going to start to see the rise of the independent artists, because we're witnessing the fall of the gatekeepers. With the fall of the gatekeepers, it's followed by the rise of the independents. You feel me? So what's going to happen now is we're going to see a resurgence of the mixtape game. We're going to see a resurgence of the freestyle rappers. We're going to see a resurgence of the battle rap. We're going to see a resurgence of what hip hop, the true essence of what hip hop was supposed to be, or what it was meant to be. That's what we're going to see. James says AI, the new mainstream. Yeah, AI is becoming the new mainstream, because there's no money in mainstream media anymore. People aren't buying that shit. They're not turning on their TVs anymore. They're on the internet now. And because the internet is an information superhighway, there's room for everybody. Thus, this is the golden age of the independents. Because as great as AI is, right, and as efficient as AI is, one thing AI cannot do is it cannot mimic 100% the human input. For example, if you listen to those rap verses that are generated by AI, you'll hear the rapper rapping, but what you won't hear is the rapper taking breaths. But then you go play a regular rapper rapping. Sometimes the engineers, when they engineer the music, when they mix and master, they'll take out the breaths that sound too loud. But there's some subtle ones in there that you'll still hear that give it that human element. And that human element, AI could never replace. I think what's going to come back is the boom bap lyrical rap. I think the that Southern bounce that morphed into drill music. I think that Southern bounce, like that party vibe, feel good bounce. I think that's gonna come back. But it's gonna be mixed with the lyrical shit. I think R&B, like the love music, is gonna make a comeback too. Because we need that. The world needs that. For real. If it wasn't for them old school love songs, a lot of us wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? And if it wasn't for them early 2000s R&B songs, a lot of our kids wouldn't be here. You feel me? Or am I saying too much? But anyway, I got to go, y'all. It's 1:30 in the morning. I got to work tomorrow, unfortunately. And then I got to work on Saturday. But I'm glad I got work still because it's so late in the season that I shouldn't have worked this late in the season, but I played it smart. At the peak season, I had my subcontractors working and I overstuffed my schedule. I overbooked my schedule because I knew when the slowdown happened, I would still have a decent volume of work left to do, so I can actually extend my season a little deeper into the cold weather. So here we are. The plan is working. The plan that I put in place since back in July, it is working. And well, that means I have to keep working. So I can't stay here with you guys all night, and I damn sure can't stream with you all day tomorrow. But soon enough, we'll be doing it. Sharut said my mom told me I was made off R. Kelly songs. Yeah, James, them 360 deals. The artists want to get out of the 360 deals and the labels want to get out of the 360 deals because they spent all this money in hopes that the artist was going to recoup that money, and the artist can't recoup the money because he sucks. So guess what? Guess what we're going to do, buddy? We're going to get that money back. This is going to cost you your life, pal. But anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. Am I still sharing? I think I'm still sharing. Yeah, we're still sharing. Oh, Kanye. Damn, Kanye. They got you, bro. The eyes look very, very similar too, but maybe I'm reaching. But anyway, before we go, make sure you guys go subscribe to the Citizen Man Backup channel. If you haven't subscribed to the Backup channel, please make sure you do in case they zap me over here on Citizen Man TV. By subscribing to the Backup channel, we can stay connected on YouTube, and I'll have somewhere to stream on YouTube. Also, follow me on Rumble. If you haven't followed me on Rumble, you're missing out, guys. Got over 50, got over 500 videos, long form. Great content, great information that you don't want to miss out. A lot of that shit you probably didn't know before. So there's always room to have your mind blown when you're watching Citizen Man. So get on over to Rumble and follow your boy on Rumble and explore the channel. And of course, last but not least, if you guys would be so kind as to support the show and leave a kind donation, you could do so via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow, the box opens up, and all the links are there. All right. And I want to give a big shout out to my 3 supporters for the night. Shout out to my brother Todd. He said, thank you for the show. Shout out to my sister Elsine. Says, great show. She says, great show. My Citizen Man. Appreciate you, Elsine. And shout out to my brother Gary on the PayPal. Appreciate you. That's our 3 for the night. Anybody else that donates to the show, during the day or during the replay, I do appreciate you, and I will shout you out on the next show. Oh no, Deborah Ticey says I'm late, had company. Damn, Deborah, you just missed the whole show. But that's all right. That's all right. Replay will still be there for you, so you can always go back and watch it. But I do appreciate you tapping in, though. That's pretty, that was pretty nice of you, even though you had company and all that. You thought enough to come on over after the company was gone. So that was pretty selfless. I feel special. I feel like I should have been part of your company. But also, just a reminder, the red X through the PayPal logo is just to remind you guys that PayPal censors comments. So please, please, please be vanilla when you comment on PayPal. Keep it surface level so they don't try to steal your money and then try to ask you how many hairs you got on your balls before they give you your money back. All right? So protect your neck. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for being here. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. I'm glad I was able to make it this Thursday. I'm surprised that the show actually turned out pretty well. It seems like my diabolical scheme to stream more often is working in terms of growing the channel, increasing the revenue and so on. So shout out to you guys for helping to make that possible, because if it wasn't for you, my audience, I'd be talking to nobody and this will all be for nothing. So you guys are the ones that I make the shows broadcast and you make the shows a show. So I appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you share the videos, share the content, let the people know that I'm out here. Promote, put the word out, and I'll see you on the next one. Citizen Man out.